Can I ask you for one favor before we start? 85% of people who watch my channel have not subscribed yet. If you like this episode, please subscribe to my channel, push the like button, and leave a comment. This will be your commitment, and I promise my team and I will keep on doing these episodes with new interesting guests and topics. And today, welcome to Above and Back show. Here I have Lesia Ogryzko with me in my studio. Lesia, you are a civic leader, a strategist, a director of Sahaidachnyi Security Center. Welcome.
Hello, and thanks for having me, and happy Vyshyvanka Day.
Yeah, sure. Happy Vyshyvanka Day.
Thank you.
You have very nice outfit.
Thank you, likewise.
Lesia, you came from diplomatic family, so my first question to you will be, please tell me more about your values, your family, I don't know, directions, which help you to focus on your activity and made you the person who you are today in professional direction.
Oh, wow, that's a very personal question to start off with. Um, I do come indeed from a diplomatic family, and I think this is the case for quite a lot of diplomats in Ukraine and subsequently their families as well, that they live according to the formula that is formulated in Ukrainian as the 3P, and the 3P stand for patriotism, professionalism, and the third P is in Ukrainian порядність, which in English would be decency. Um, and this is not just, like an abstract formula for our family that has indeed been one of the key underlying principles and values in the whole of my family, and we are quite a big one. Um, and I think this also helped shape who we are today as a family and as individuals, because that brings a bit of a sense of a responsibility. Being from a diplomatic family, that means that you live for quite some time abroad, so you're far away from your country. And I think this also brings this special flavor because you're away from home, and you think about home as something sometimes even better than it might be in reality. But at the same time, we always had this connection, even when we were abroad. We were going to the Ukrainian Saturday and Sunday schools, and also learning the Ukrainian program. So basically, being in another country, you would do both programs: the school program of that particular country and that of Ukraine's one. And I think this is what is a good foundation then to build in your life when you become an adult and you think of the responsibility. Before your community and before your nation, and this is what's indeed helped shape what we do currently.
That's amazing. We both graduated from Kiev Institute of International Relations, and lots of our peers they left Ukraine like long before the war started, and the other part they just fled when the war started. So my next question to you: what made you stay here? Was it like more personal commitment or maybe some broader strategic perspective to stay here?
I think it's a combination of both, and this is again a continuation of the previous question about family. Uh, it stands true for the whole of our family. We all stayed here. Um, it was a decision that nobody even debated within our little circle. I think it is partially because this is exactly what the Russians want us to do. They want to completely destroy our country, annihilate the national foundation and the national identity by, first of all, launching a completely genocidal war and basically, indeed, exterminating, if we can say so, the population here, but also forcing those people that's decided to stay, forcing them to leave and to abandon their homes, abandon their country. And I think this is also part of a protest movement, let's say, from our family and from so many other families who decided to stay, that we are not giving you this. We will be in Ukraine and we will be there for, as they say in the West, so for as long as it takes, because this is our land and we're not going anywhere. But in your question, there is a bit of a trick, and I would want to avoid, trying to divide Ukrainians between those who decided to stay and those who decided to go. And I think we have absolutely no moral right to judge anyone, because everyone has his or her own story. There might be a million reasons why a person decides to flee, to start a new life somewhere, to protect his or her children. I was back in 2014, 15, and 16 in working in the Donbass. I co-founded the Save the Children response in Ukraine. And I remember it was so easy back then also to label all of those people who decided to stay in the so-called non-government controlled areas as traitors. Although, if you look into concrete family situations, there might be, as I said, a million of different reasons why they decided not to go to the government controlled areas. There might be a bedridden family member who needs your daily care. There might be, I don't know, another situation with, I don't know, with real estate, with work, with any other conditions. So I think we Ukrainians have to be smarter, and we have to build bridges, and not, talk about who decided to leave, who decided to stay, because I think this is also part of our resilience, that the whole world is in awe.
Yeah, you're right. And today we talk about resilience, but mostly about security. So my question to you, how your personal understanding of what security is changed since the full-scale war started?
Oh, I think it changed dramatically, because I think the term security becomes so transcendental. And what I mean by that is that you understand that security is really in everything, and that security is really the foundation of anything you do. Like, you can write a podcast, you can brew some coffee and be a barista, you can be electrician, you can write research, etc. It really doesn't matter what you do, but in moments when a ballistic missile is attacking your city, it really is only up to where you are, whether you're safe, whether you have taken care of the safety and security of your children, of your family, etc. So I think the whole term of security and also personal safety has undergone such a tremendous transformation in Ukraine's context. And I think this is also one of the values that we can bring to the table when we are talking about Ukraine's ability to shape the next European security architecture, is also explaining the different shades of gray of the security. That is not only about, air defense. It's also about, defending your energy grid. It's defending your civilian infrastructure and so many other things. So security is really the foundation of everything now.
And talking about security in your like professional perspective, you are the director of Sahaidachnyi Security Center, a think tank, right? Tell me more about this institution and what is the difference of this institution just compared with other think tanks of Ukraine.
So the Sahaidachnyi Security Center, I think, is a good reflection of overall the state of mind of many people in Ukraine, because we, the co-founders, we don't have necessarily a military or purely defense backgrounds, but we just decided that this is time in times of war. It is time for those people who really want to support its nation, support its people and the country in its existential fight, um, to um, to be better equipped for the future wars, and basically win the current war that we're or the current stage, let's say, of war. The think tank bears the name of Sahaidachnyi. It's very difficult to pronounce to most of my international colleagues that I work with, and I am so used to having heard 1,000 versions of the name Sahaidachnyi already. But for those who don't know, this is a 16th and 17th century Ukrainian hetman, so leader of the Ukrainian Cossacks, who is basically one of the founders, let's say, of the Ukrainian army back then. And he built it up, he reformed it. He was a very big innovator in terms of warfare back in the 17th century. And also, he's one of the hetmans who was bold enough and very successful in going up until Muscovy. He went twice to Moscow to burn it down. So, of course, there is also this part of symbolism that shapes what Sahaidachnyi Security Center is about, but it's basically about helping Ukraine's armed forces, Ukraine's defense ecosystem to reform and to thrive in the current very changing geopolitical security landscape. So we have three tracks that we work with. One is analytics, so very traditional for a think tank. So we do research starting from more the technological edge of modern warfare. And I'm sure everybody knows how Ukraine is battle testing every single technology that is out there, and ending with the more geopolitical matters in the world. We are having, especially, of course, the focus of Europe and European security that is very much changing just in front of our eyes these past couple of months. And we believe that Ukraine has to be indeed one very important voice in this new security architecture. The second one is international advocacy. And here I think everything is quite understandable what we do. We use every single channel, every single platform to advocate for more defense and military assistance to Ukraine. And the third one is, as we call, the development of the defense ecosystem in Ukraine. Because one of the paradoxical things about Ukraine's civil society in the defense sector is that at the 11th year of war, or let's say at the beginning of the full scale, it was the 8th year of war, the only part of civil society that was quite underdeveloped, quite scattered around, not having too many horizontal connections between each other, was the defense sector. That is actually, um, some might agree or disagree, but I believe this is the most important sector for Ukraine in times of war. And even after a potential ceasefire that I don't think will be possible in the nearest future. But anyway, that will remain for Ukraine, and not just for Ukraine, for the world, for the rest of the world, the the absolute priority. And so in Ukraine, we had this very paradoxical situation um, where you would have civil society in this extremely important sector quite weak. And this is something that we believe needs to be very much changed. It has to be boosted because, as we say, the theory or the even practice of change in Ukraine is that for any meaningful transformation, for any lasting reform to happen, you need to have a very strong civil society pushing for it. We cannot rely purely on governmental institutions. This is just how Ukraine works, especially if you look at since 2013-14. This is how we implemented pretty much any reform in Ukraine. And this is something that we need also to boost very much in the defense sector. So parts of the things we do is we do different trainings and educational courses, etc. Because on the one hand, you have to capacitate and to bring as many people into the defense sector, although or those who are already there, to boost their capacities a little bit. And on the other hand, this provides a platform of regular meetings, and this is, I think, the glue that brings people together, the regularity of their interaction. And we already see a lot of results. Like we see how the communities that were part of the same training courses, they live, they continue doing certain joint projects, they do advocacy work, they organize conferences, etc. So I think we are quite successful on that track as well.
Wow, that's really great job and lots of activities to do in the future. And okay, my question will be, who do you work with? I mean, like maybe some donors or like sponsors, or maybe some other collaborations like international alike organizations. So who are your stakeholders?
So this is a very interesting, a very important question because um, a part of the reason why civil society in the defense in Ukraine has been relatively weak, especially if you compare it with other bubbles like the, let's say, anti-corruption bubble or media, human rights, decentralization, etc., is because there has never been enough funding for it. And the reason for it is because there are these two different financial streams in international relations. Let's say one is ODA, Official Development Assistance, for which working with think tanks or NGOs that do something on the defense side, even if it's just, analytics or some advocacy, is a little bit too, let's say, too military. And then there is the second vehicle, which is government to government military assistance. For these guys, you are too vegetarian because what are you guys? You are like, you're just doing some research, analytical papers, or study visits, etc. And then you end up falling through the cracks. You don't receive financial support either from that vehicle, nor from that one. And this is basically the challenge that was there up until now. There is one exemption here, and that is the United Kingdom that has been traditionally supporting this civil society sector in Ukraine for quite a long time. And huge thank you for all of the British taxpayers who who basically made that possible. But now this is also part of our advocacy. We see that there is much more understanding in international institutions and among our international partners that defense is really the foundation, something that we already spoke about. And you might want to change some of your regulations and internal processes to be able to support civil society in defense sector. So you are not supporting, a purchase of a drone or another weaponry system, but you are supporting civilian oversight, for example, or analytical capacities in the defense sector. And this is all very, very crucial. So to answer your question, we have been working indeed with the support of the United Kingdom, and of course we have a very broad network of partner institutions and lots of European think tanks with who we have joint projects. Different conferences and events, etc. And this is also perhaps not a financial contribution, but this has extremely high value also for us as a think tank that does both advocacy and analytics.
Thank you for this perspective. I do hope that you'll find more donors, international ones, interested in, facilitating your activity here in Ukraine, because I really think that if Ukraine is secure, when the rest of the Europe is, and then of course the whole world.
Thanks.
So your center is named after Sahaidachnyi, Hetman Sahaidachnyi, quite a historic person and character. So my next question to you: do you think there was ever a time or epoch where Ukraine felt itself quite secure and safe historically?
Oh, well, that's a quite philosophical question because if you look just at, world history, you would actually see that rather the normal state of play is when people are in wars with each other. Well, either it's tribes or different cities, different communities, or on a later stage, nations fighting on each other, or on a later stage, also proxies, etc. So if you look from that historical, but also a little bit philosophical perspective, then it's difficult to think when you can imagine yourself in a safe spot if the normal state of affairs is that you have to be at war or that everybody is at war with each other. Um, but maybe looking at different, stages of Ukraine's history, I think um, the only times when Ukraine really had this luxury of feeling well, itself more or less safe is when it was master of its own destiny. So when it was not ruled by any other adversaries. In our case, in the first place, obviously Muscovy, and later the Russian Empire, and then the Soviet Union. But then also we had um, other setup, historical setup with other countries as well. So I would say it was the Kievan Rus, where Ukraine, well, back then not called Ukraine yet, the Kievan Rus, but was one of the strongest political entities in Europe back then, from a political point of view, from its defense posture, from its cultural standing. Um, I think this is when we had quite a good uh, security situation. Although even then, of course, even the Kievan Rus waged wars. We were at wars with other nations, but it was rather about agency, that you are the master of those lands and you get to decide what your foreign political and defense moves would be. Another one was when Ukraine was part of the Polish, Lithuanian, Ukrainian Commonwealth. Because if you look back at these dates as well, that was I would say, a partnership. It was really based um, on uh, on a standing where everyone had the same rights to a certain moment in time. So again, it dates back to the ages when Ukraine has the ability to decide for its own. Everything that lasted after was unfortunately a situation where Ukrainians had to become part of different empires. And this is when the Ukrainian state basically is non-existent any longer. And this is the biggest security threat for Ukraine then. And this is the biggest security threat for us as well. And this is what Putin and all of the Russians actually want for Ukrainians, for Ukraine as a political entity, as a geographical entity on the geographical map to disappear.
Lesia, you mentioned this partnership, yeah, and my next question will be beyond NATO and EU integration. So, do you think Ukraine should seek more alliances with international partners?
Well, I think the short answer is yes, but I think you're right in mentioning that you're saying beyond, because EU integration and NATO integration are embedded now in Ukraine's constitution. This is something where Ukrainians, as a nation, have overwhelming support of. Um, and I think these are our aspirations that nobody is in a position to tell us to cross off from Ukraine's constitution, even if the political realities, especially now with the current U.S. administration, but even with the previous ones, dictate us a strategic pause in these developments. However, in the changing geopolitical landscape that we seeing unfold in front of our eyes now, that has been accelerated now with very bold and controversial moves from the current U.S. administration, I do believe that it's not just Ukraine that is is understanding this, but also the rest of Europe, that potentially it is high time for a new security arrangement in Europe, because let's face the truth, if the Americans really pull away from the European security and from NATO, and people actually start questioning the Article 5 of the Washington Treaty, then there is basically not so much sense and not such a strong defense posture and deterrence posture in NATO. And then on the other hand, we have the EU, the European institutions, the common foreign and security policy. But until we get to actually having unified European armed forces, and a closed defense innovation cycle, etc., this will take a lot of time. And I think it is really high time for countries that have a very similar threat perception. And here, of course, we are talking about Ukraine, the Baltic countries, the Scandinavian countries, that understand the Russian threat not as a theoretical concept, but have been having this horrible experience in their history, that these countries get together and start thinking about maybe something smaller than NATO, something more agile, where they would not be stopped by consensus decision making and by the veto rights of certain European countries that we know are applying their veto all too often. And this is definitely not in substitution of the existing structures and security arrangements in Europe. But I think it is really high time to think about a plan B if indeed um, NATO will not perform as many put their hopes in them. And this is something that sorry to interrupt, this is something that our think tank is also starting as our intellectual and conceptual exercise, because I do believe this is now the time to start elaborating how this potential alliance perhaps might look like.
Yeah, I totally share your position regarding new alliances and NATO. For me, NATO seems to be, like some distance goal. But anyway, there are always people who form this security agenda, Ukrainians. So my next question to you, how do you see the role of state in terms of the involvement of young generation in formatting this new security agenda, and how we can affect their minds, influence for them to stay here and build this new security architecture?
Well, I would here start from early on, and I would see on the one hand the Israel example is something that we might be looking at, and also the Scandinavian countries that have in their societies this concept called total defense, and just in short terms, this is about all of the societal groups being ready for any security situation might happen in your country, where everybody knows who exactly has to do what, etc. We Ukrainians had to learn it the hard way, but I do believe that we still have a lot to learn from some other experiences of how you can do it on a whole of society approach. And of course, young people and even kids have to be taught from early on, be it from the early days at school, and then obviously also in universities, etc. Drone racing, a whole of society defense courses, different cyber security exercises, different hackathons, etc. So this is one part. The other part, and you were saying how to convince young people to stay. This is a very difficult question. I'm not sure I have the answer to it, but I would rather say we cannot make sure that all that are here will stay. this is, I mean, we're living in an era of globalization. We cannot force anyone to stay. We're not North Korea or something. But what we can do is really build a network, and this is something that the newly established Ministry of National Unity is also trying to do, and this is actually a nice attempt to build a network where you can really, in a good way, utilize the resources, including the human resources that we have now as a result of the full-scale war, so that we have this network of support throughout all of the world. Because now I wouldn't know a country where you won't find a Ukrainian. So it's a little bit twisting and turning the tables and how you can really build this network of the Ukrainian global community. Some call it diaspora, the new diaspora, etc., and how you can really build the support from within of key partners, key international partners that Ukraine is partially dependent on.
And by the way, in one of your interviews, you called the Ukrainian diaspora our army of ambassadors, right? Responsible for shaping Ukraine's collective brand abroad. But can I ask you, like, frankly and directly, do you think we're winning the information war?
Well, first of all, I very much agree with my previous statement. I do believe that this is a huge asset. A huge asset that, however, we as a state, I think, do not utilize or use to its fullest. This is something, again, going to the first personal questions, something that I was raised with. That indeed, every time you're somewhere abroad, remember, you might be the first the Ukrainian that somebody meets, and you will be the association with a whole country. And it's up to you how you treat this person, how you communicate with this person, etc. So it's indeed, many people think they're tiny, they don't have an impact. I always say no, you have a tremendous impact, because they will judge Ukraine just by how you are in this other society that you live in. Um, as for the information war, I think, like with any wars, it's not a linear process. I do believe we had a tremendous success during the beginning of the full-scale war. I think we had the whole, well, 90% of the world rallied behind us. It started shifting, just like also our battlefields developments. It was not a linear process. Um, uh, you would say, and I would agree, let's say the Oval Office situation was not necessarily a big victory, but at the same time, you see how things can change just in a matter of weeks. So Ukraine's information efforts are actually quite commendable, especially if you compare the resources that are being poured by our main adversary, Russia, into poisoning the media landscapes of pretty much every democratic country, and not just democratic countries, and the very scarce resources that Ukrainians have. But I think we just have a very convincing argument. We have this story to tell, because we are the victim. It's very black and white. You don't have many wars in current times and even before where it's so black and white. There is no gray area. You have an aggressor, you have a victim, and we are there. We are standing for freedom, and we are standing for, resilience, and this I think can buy the hearts of people, because it's actually not buying. It speaks to the people of the world.
I do believe that all the conscious people, they know that this is black and white, and this is crystal clear to everyone. Do you think Ukraine can shift from being mostly a recipient of international security support to becoming a more like provider, maybe of some innovative solutions, like in cyber security, maybe, or resilience building, or civic mobilization?
Absolutely, all of that, and beyond that, a lot of more. Uh, as said, I do believe we are on the brink of a new security architecture, a new setup in Europe. And I think the new architecture will have Ukraine not banging on the doors and asking to be let in by the rest of of the member states. Ukraine will be the founding block of any new security arrangement, even not just for Europe, in the world. I mean, which country is testing the battlefield innovation as Ukraine does? Which country has demonstrated such resilience on multiple levels, on the levels of civil society, on the level of whole of society, on the level of businesses, on the level of energy infrastructure, and you name it, name it, name it. So I do believe Ukraine is definitely um, coming out of this war as a partner that everybody in Europe wants to partner with, because we are the only security guarantee that the Russians stay out. So I think this is what many people in Europe are starting to understand. Not all of them, but I'm quite sure we're getting there, because there is basically no other army that would ensure that they can feel themselves in a safe spot.
After so much loss and resilience, yeah, we felt during this war, how do you think Ukrainians will perceive security, and what will truly make people feel safe again after the war ends and all the negotiations are signed?
Um, there was this very interesting poll conducted in September 24, where over 60% of Ukrainians said that um, another attack on Ukraine is irreversible, no matter whether there will be a ceasefire or not. In other words, Ukrainians don't trust Putin, even if something gets signed o- on a later stage. I think Ukrainians are now in a state of mind where they understand we are in the we are in a very long game here, and we are expecting a third, a fourth, and etc. Invasion to happen if Ukrainians are not part of NATO, or if Ukrainians are not in part of another security arrangement that would provide them necessary security guarantees. Now, having said this, I do believe that another state of mind of Ukrainians is that we might be striving to be part of NATO. We might be slowly but surely looking into new security arrangements where Ukraine is part of it. But I think the number one bet of Ukrainians is currently self-reliance, self-sufficiency. So I do believe in the current state of war, the only security guarantee that we have now is our own Ukrainian armed forces. That's number one. And number two is a very strong Ukrainian defense production and defense industry that has been demonstrating just tremendous resilience and tremendous growth within the last 3 years. Now, all of these answers are answers to the question, how do Ukrainians prepare for the next war? So the mindset is that war will go on. The other mindset, and maybe some people would say it's, rosy fantasies, um, but the other mindset is, how can we make sure that Russia doesn't launch any new attacks against Ukraine? And the only answer to that is when Russia ceases to be a empire. And subsequently, the only condition when Russia ceases to be an empire is where the imperial project gets dissolved. Um, and I do believe that this will happen sooner or later, because this is just the logic of times. I don't know any empire in all of the times of this world that didn't have an end. Russia is currently the 21st century empire that is left, and sooner or later, the peoples that are suppressed under the Kremlin rule, and we are talking about more than 190 different peoples and nations within the so-called Russian Federation, some of them will start breaking free or wanting to break free. And this is the time when we all collectively will be facing the situation, are we prepared for it or not? And this is something that also our think tank is doing, starting this conversation with many of our international partners as to, are you preparing a contingency plan when something what happened with the Soviet Union starts happening in the Russian Federation? And of course, our answer is get prepared as soon as possible, because this will be happening sooner or later.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. Thank you for this wonderful conversation. What you said, it really resonates, I think, far beyond Ukraine. And now it's, stress test for global community, how to build this new security architecture and how to make these, lessons learned, not just lessons, but practical steps. So thank you so much, Lesia. This was my show, Above and Back. Please share, leave a comment, and see you next time.